You don't need to
Okay.
start the broadcast right now. It should be at 2.
No, I did not. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the webinar, Latest Cybersecurity Threats and Best Practices for Alternative Investment Funds. I am Hamid, working for Akram Associates. Akram and Associates, which is a full-service accounting firm providing assurance, advisory, and tax services for the financially savvy, especially hedge funds and cryptocurrency funds. I'm doing as a Chief Information Security Officer since last 2 years or so, and primarily involved in security and incident response matters. With me are the panelists Brian Long and Rob Freeney, and we'll be discussing the course of cybersecurity threats and best practices for the alternative investment funds. Before we start, let's have a brief introduction from our panelists. Brian, you may start with.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Good to see everyone. Happy Wednesday. As mentioned, my name is Brian Long, and I'm currently with Line Data, where I head our cybersecurity strategy and cybersecurity practice. Prior to Line Data, I was at IBM for quite some time running cybersecurity for their financial services group, and then before that as a practitioner at the Royal Bank of Canada. So very nice to chat with you all. This is certainly a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. Rob?
Thanks, Brian. Sorry, you were saying something? Okay. Thanks, Brian. Rob Freeney, please.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me here today. My name is Rob Farini, and I am the program manager for cyber liability insurance with McGowan Professional. McGowan Professional is an insurance company that works primarily, or actually exclusively, with investment advisors, lawyers, and accounting firms. We offer professional liability and cyber liability. We insure over 6,000 clients across the U.S., and so we have a lot of experience in cyber insurance, and I'm glad to be here today.
Thanks, Rob. So let's start. Akram and Associates is registered with the National Association for State Boards of Accountancy, NASPA, as a sponsor of continuing professional education on the National Registry of CPE sponsors. Today's webinar session will give 1 CPE credit to the participants. Each participant has to attend 50-minute session and successful attempt 3 out of 4 polling questions asked during the course of webinar. We will email CPA certificates in the next couple of days after this webinar. So there's no basic level, it's a basic level program and no prerequisites are required, no attendance, no advanced preparation was required. Me and Line Data, Brian and Rob have already described about the companies. So let's have an introduction. Alternative fund industry is no less a target for cyber criminals, targeting by threats like ransomware, phishing, and data breaches, against which strong security measures, regular audits, and employee training are very important. In the course, we will be looking after these aspects, and the panelists will be briefly or giving out the details of all the topics which are covered in this webinar. So first of all, the cyber landscape. In the past, cyber criminals were working loosely and disconnected in their operations. And the new normal is they have now got connected and work together to target large companies and small business, even small businesses for large financial gains. With AI, this has further transformed into a rapid changing threat development platform or environment and digitally assisted cyber arsenal. So AI and cyber threat landscape. Brian, would you like to take this on and talk about the current threat landscape and how AI is benefiting threat actors? Please.
Sure, happy to, thank you. I think a couple things to note specifically to this industry. So first and foremost, the screen there we go. First and foremost, When it comes to number of attacks, interestingly, financial services has dropped, still within the top 5. Financial services is the fourth most targeted industry. But even though we're ranked 4th as far as most targeted industry, the financial loss related to attacks more than doubles the next closest industry. So financial services loss alone costs this industry more than double the next closest industry when it comes to cyber crimes. What we see happening though is a couple of things. You talked about AI right out of the gate. We see threat actors innovating far faster than we can when we're protecting organizations because there's no barriers to entry for them. Meaning, if AI works, great. If it doesn't work, great. They can continue to work with trial and error. So we are seeing a massive increase in the amount of phishing attempts, attacks that are purposely targeting fraud as a means of extracting money from organizations, because now the quality of attacks is increased with the help of AI. Writing of emails, the look of fake websites and landing pages is way better than it ever used to be. And that's even before you start to talk about the deep fake around voice and video that's now prolific in a lot of these frauds. So the fact is threat actors have way more tools at their disposal, and they are faster to innovate than we are when it comes to using AI applied to cybersecurity. So big challenges, and I haven't seen that curb yet.
Thanks, Brian. So AI is supporting them, but they are already like too fast to create things to target, companies and individuals to take out money from them. So, Brian, why do you think that vulnerabilities continue to be the most common attack vector, and isn't this something we can solve for?
Is that for me?
Yeah, Brian, that's for you.
It's interesting from a vulnerability perspective. Vulnerability management has been common practice in cybersecurity for years now, but this continues to be a problem. And it's not necessarily identifying the vulnerabilities, it's getting to the point where you're patching vulnerabilities within an organization. So there are lots of tools out there that can identify the vulnerabilities, they can prioritize them for you, but I think one of the things we see most often is that firms lack plans to quickly patch their systems in order of priority. So meaning critical, high, medium, and low threats, get your critical vulnerabilities fixed, right, within the next change cycle, and so on down the list, so that this can be avoided. I'm actually surprised this still exists, because it again is something that can be solved, but unfortunately there are still too many vulnerabilities in organizations. So it's a combination for me. It's setting up a practice to really tackle this, and then in addition, educating the users as to why it's important. Right, users play a role here as well, especially on desktops, turning on machines, accepting updates, actually ensuring that the updates are completed. So, this is an area that I'll reiterate again. It can be solved, but the right amount of attention has to be put on the vulnerability management topic.
Thanks, Brian. As Brian said, that vulnerability patchment is very important, and that's what people generally lack. Like, not only the employees, but also the staff which is looking after IT equipment and services. And since there are a number of platforms covering vulnerabilities, and they are like showing or giving away the news is on this, so keeping oneself abreast with all the vulnerabilities in the market or going in the wild is very difficult. So for that, technical people who are looking after this cybersecurity thing have to be very abreast with the things going on in the wild, and for that, you need to be very acquainted with that, what is coming in and how to stop and how to protect against such things.
Can I jump in here a quick second?
Please,
so the second half of this slide, most common is the exploited vulnerabilities represented the most common ransomware attack vectors, followed by compromised credentials and malicious emails. From a claims point of view, we in the insurance business still see poor password hygiene. That's where the compromised credentials come in. And we see people still clicking on malicious emails, clicking on things. So yes, the AI coding is making a big difference. They're able to get to market, so to speak, quicker. But it's the same thing it's always been. People are still using bad passwords. People are still reusing passwords, and people are still clicking on emails where they shouldn't be. And we see those claims all the time.
So you say that the basic principle of keeping security of like passwords, changing passwords, and not clicking on the links, which is like told to everyone. We as a cybersecurity people have been telling people a lot on this, but still the flaw is there, and people do not like follow the rules, and that's how they get affected.
Right. Statistics being what they are, the statistics for everything, but it's somewhere in the 70s or 80% of breaches are coming from human error, one way or another, and led by compromised credentials and malicious email hygiene. But yes, I don't know how to stop people from clicking that. They do all kinds of, the bad guys do all kinds of things, or use urgency, use pull at your heartstrings. I need this done right away. I haven't supposed to do it yesterday. They use pretexting where they seem to know who you are and they know what's going on. And I could go on and on and on about all the claims that we've seen for people clicking on things just because the email says something and they're not doing the next step to make sure that it's a client as opposed to a hacker.
Exactly. So what we have seen already, like people are more enthusiast, or they're more like clicking on things, and instead of like reading the email or the content, they just go to the link thing and click on that there is something in it, probably which reading all of the other things will maybe like a wastage of time. So you are right that that's a habit, and that affects a lot. Okay, so data breach is one of the most important factors. Like you said, that breach like credentials available in the market and open, and those are being used for compromise. The compromised credentials are basically used for data breaches or these attacks. So, Brian, with the proliferation of AI and the need to share data, isn't this just going to be get worse?
I definitely think so. This to me is the hardest challenge for us as technologists and cybersecurity practitioners when it comes to AI. Every single organization I talk to is innovating with AI, trying to figure out what are the right use cases to boost efficiency, finding the right models that drive quality results. And what's consistent in the stats I've heard recently is that off-the-shelf models without proprietary data drive 60% accuracy, which for most organizations is completely unacceptable. They won't implement a solution with that kind of accuracy. But when you infuse corporate data into the models that you're leveraging, then you get into the 90s. So all of a sudden, the equation makes sense when you think of it from a business perspective, when you think of it with whatever the use case and application is. But there's the rub, right? You have to include your data to drive effective AI models. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of consternation. I don't know if we've got a solution to this yet. At the end of the day, where I see the largest banks going, a number of which have announced pretty significant partnerships with the likes of Microsoft, OpenAI, Google, et cetera, is they're all forcing dedicated instances of AI in closed environments to protect them, and that's really the only way they'll allow it. Even though data may be going into the cloud, everybody is very much focused on dedicated instances to mitigate the risk of theft in data breaches in this space. So we're going to see more of it, but we're also putting a lot of pressure on AI vendors. We as an AI vendor as well feel that from our customers. So we are constantly looking at how our models are constructed and then the security we're putting in place to be able to assure our customers, our partners, that yes, their data can be protected in these environments. But this will be a tough one. This debate, I'm sure, will go on for quite some time.
Yeah, correct. Because with AI, since we are like into an age where there's everything is related to AI, and as you said that since it has to have something corporate data, then it will be more accurate. As you said that 90% of accuracy comes after you provide the data, and that's where the problem comes in. Like in the corporate culture, we try to like store our data in a way that it is privileged to only individuals which is assigned to it. And with AI, we have to provide all the data to the AI thing, and then it has to learn from it. So that's how it is becoming more complex towards like security of data. Phishing and social engineering is one of the biggest problems, and that's primarily everything revolves at initially in terms of getting access to systems and accounts. So Rob, do you have any claim example of AI written email breaches? As this is one of the things which is being taken on by AI nowadays with deep fake and the content writing thing.
Sure we do. So over the last few years, the emails have become much more sophisticated. In the past, you were able to tell with grammar or spelling. There might be errors, there might be context issues, but with AI, that has become less apparent, number one. Number two, we have seen a big increase in deepfake voicemails. So one of the things we've been preaching for years is to use out-of-band communication to be sure that a transfer is accurate. So out-of-band communication would be that you get an email that says, hey, I'd like to make this transfer. You pick up the phone and you verify that that is accurate, that that person wants it, and you move along with the transaction. You do out of band, which is a number that's not in in the email that you got, because we've seen claims where it says, "Hey, I'm in Italy and I'm going to a car auction and I need to get the money by 5 p.m. and I'd like you to transfer the money here, but because I'm overseas, I have a different cell phone number. Would you verify using this number?" That's a claim we saw maybe 5 years ago. Today, just recently, we received a claim where when they came into the office, they got a voicemail that said, hey, this is front of mind. I know it's after your business hours, but I wanted to let you know that I'm going to be sending in an email request. My boss is going to be sending in an email request for a transfer. He's out of the country, and I know you guys want to check, but I'm thinking of it now. I'm not going to be in until late in the afternoon tomorrow. So when you get that email, you know it's the real thing. They look in their emails. There's the email from the boss. There's the request for the transfer. Instead of going out of band communication, because the voicemail sounded like somebody that they knew, the person that they've dealt with in the past, they made the transaction, and it turned out to be fraudulent. My understanding is it takes about 15 seconds of audio to be able to make a deep fake say whatever you want it to say in a voice that's pretty good. You can even match it up to video if you wanted to. And I've heard of where there's been video conferences with a deep fake of the person that you think it is, but it's actually not that person. It's computer generated. But that's a recent claim that we had, that they used voicemail and they used email. So we see them all the time. We see lots of business compromise where it's just, hey, would you do this? Would you make this transfer? Would you do this payment? And a lot of times what happens is it doesn't become aware that it's a fraud until the bank account runs out of money. We did have one of those where it's about 8 different transactions. The 8th one bounced. or wasn't paid, and that's when they found out that they gave away $1.2 million.
So you mean that after this webinar is published, they'll have like more than 50 minutes of our audios to do those things?
That's right. Yeah, they'll be able to copy us easily.
Yeah. So you being since your portfolio is like such, so what type of coverage is needed for this kind of threat?
So one misnomer is that cyber insurance is going to cover theft of client funds. That is not the case. So if you have care, custody, and control of an account on the behalf of a client, and it is not your bank account in care of the client, cyber insurance is not going to cover it. That's for cyber insurance is for a direct loss. The only place you can get social engineering coverage for care and control of client funds is with a crime policy. So there's a disconnect a lot of times where someone gives away client funds because of a fake email. They have access to make transactions out of the client's account, but they don't control the account. That is not covered under a cyber policy. Cyber policies only cover direct loss of funds. So your firm's funds are covered if you gave away invoice manipulation or gave away payroll or whatever, but not if you make a transfer with client funds.
So you mean not only cyber policy, but the crime policy also?
Correct. Now, because social engineering is so prevalent, it is difficult to get high limits. The highest limits you can get for a crime policy is about $500,000, but you have to have some strong controls in place to be able to get that.
Thanks. Okay, so one of the biggest problem, or the only biggest problem, what I say is like ransomware to the industry. And as we all know, this is increasing day by day. Although there are measures from threat actors, from the protection companies like the antivirus companies and others, threat intelligence companies, but still it is at the peak. Sorry for that. So how long, Brain, what do you just give your view on this? How long are firms usually impacted by a ransomware, and how quick is the recovery time, like process?
We see a lot of times that it's a great question, because I think people have ideas that they can recover quickly, but in reality, minimum 2 weeks. Like we see firms out of the water, and the reason for that, just to substantiate the estimate, is that when you think of everything that has to happen, and I'll take you through a ransomware incident that I walked a customer through. They were shocked that they were attacked first out of the gate. They didn't have an incident response plan in place. Then they're trying to figure out, well, do I need to pay the attacker? What did they get? Oh, we don't have controls in place to really understand exactly what the attacker was able to exfiltrate from the organization. So they had to figure that out. Then they had to figure out what the vulnerability was that allowed the attacker in the first place before they started rebuilding, because if you don't fix the vulnerability, there's no sense rebuilding, and on down the list, right? So you can see how quickly these pile up. These are days lost in scrambling, trying to move, as I say, from defense to offense, so that they can start making intelligent decisions as to really what they should. So I say minimum 2 weeks, but it could even be longer than that in very complex organizations where there are lots of customer-facing portals and websites to interact with organizations. It's a tough one, especially if the attacker really gets data that is critical, right? So yeah, this is a tough one.
So a couple of other things that I would like to add in there. One is we have a claim ongoing now, and I agree, a couple of weeks. But we have one that's out about 4 months trying to recover, because they have to recover manually one of their drives that they found out was not encrypted properly. And after negotiation with the hacker, getting them down from 5 Bitcoin to 2.5 Bitcoins, they were able to get the data back, but they didn't get one of the drives back. It's taken them about 5 months to recreate that data. They didn't have a good backup. So even though they got most of their operation up, they're still working on one part of their system.
So that means that the toll is not only money, but it's also time and resources. So,
Yes.
Time, resources, brand impact. These are tough situations, especially as it relates to the data that is lost or encrypted, right? When you start having to inform people, your customers, that their private data has been compromised, that's a hard one, right? That's a big hit, especially now add to it when you're out 2 weeks, 1 month, multiple months. It is a massive impact to a lot of organizations.
A couple of years ago, I'm sorry, go ahead, Brian.
No, it's okay. Please,
I was going to throw in another claim example. Maybe a year and a half ago, we got a call from one of our insureds that he was getting calls from his clients saying that they got emails that said that their accountant had their data and that the accountant was not paying the ransom, and they were going to release it by the end of the day if the ransom wasn't paid. So extortion to me is scarier than ransom, because just as Brian was saying, it is branding and reputation, and getting the call from a client as opposed to your IT folks, knowing that this is happening, having your clients know before you do, is really unsettling.
So this is more disturbing than the extortion thing, and or like money, time, and the topmost thing, the trust of clients, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So with this, we come to the first polling question. Let me just pull it for everyone. So you'll have like 20 seconds to answer this, and after that, we'll move forward. Let me just launch that. Okay. There's still like people not voted yet. So like 30% are left, 70% have voted, and it's time now. Okay, so almost like 100% have answered to gain unauthorized access to sensitive information. Okay. The insider threat, and that's where like things get very tricky, and in terms of giving access to the threat actors. Rob, how do you do these unintentional accidental breaches occur, like from inside? Insider threats are like two types. One is like, which is as unintentional accidental things, and the other one is like intentional. So let's have your point of view on the unintentional one first.
So unintentional would be misdirection or misconfiguration. So you put the data in the wrong place. One of the things we're starting to see, and it hasn't become an issue yet, is people will inform us that they have put data into a AI generator that is large language model and not a corporate one, but out to the market, out to the general internet. So it's unintentional actions such as misdirection, misdelivery, sending information to the wrong email address, sending client data to a spreadsheet someplace to use AI that's gone to the gone out into the internet. Things of that are unintentional, and then rogue employees are intentional. They leave, they take the data with them. You don't know what they've taken if you don't have good controls on the exit checklist. When an employee leaves, do you turn off their systems? Do you remove their access? Things of that nature. But those are the two things that we see: unintentional and rogue employees.
Thanks, Rob. A third-party risk, which includes the vendors and everything which comes into the system. So, Brian, with reporting expectations of services providers provider changing, how should firms address cybersecurity with their vendors?
This is a big one. In conferences that I go to where a number of chief compliance officers are present, there are constantly questions around this topic because of the new rules around reporting. Service providers, for example, have 72 hours to report on breach, as we would as a cybersecurity provider, whereas asset management firms have 30 days. So it's nice asset management firms have longer to report, but at the end of the day, if your service provider is breached and they report, it's almost an obligation to come out, right? So there's this disconnect between what service providers have to do and then what asset management firms are obligated to. But I think even further, as you start to read into the regulations, there is a real expectations that firms have a finger on the pulse of their partners' cybersecurity practices. You know, there are things like incident response plans that you need to know as an organization from your vendors, because that has to dovetail into what you create as well. So this is no longer can you just look at your own cybersecurity. The best advice I can give here is be bold with your partners. Ask the details of their cybersecurity controls, ask for their plans, ask for what they do if there was an attack, and what the reporting process is, because all of these things you need to understand so that they can be woven into how you approach cybersecurity as well. And this is only going to continue to grow as far as a risk perspective, because so many vendors are in the cloud. Your data will leave your prem, et cetera. So this is a big one. And again, I think with the right amount of attention, there's things you can do to mitigate risk, but be bold with your partners. Really ask the tough questions, and don't take no as an answer, right? If they really want to do business, they're going to share this detail with you, and it really is imperative.
Brian, in addition to that, I think it is good to have something like a third-party audit or pen testing from the same firm which is doing your pen testing, your security auditing, so that you are at a par, like it is equivalent to yours. Because asking documents and things, and implementation, there's always a change in that. So
Yeah.
there are possibilities to have any losses later on. So, Rob, are third-party breaches covered by insurance, and why not?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So third-party breaches are covered under some policies. So not to be long-winded, but cyber insurance is a relatively new insurance in the scheme of insurance. Fire insurance or homeowners insurance has been around for 400 years, and cyber has been around for about 25 to 30 years. There is no consistency from one cyber policy to the next cyber policy. Some will cover contingent third party, some will cover third party vendors like your host provider, but not your IT support. So it depends is the best answer I can give. But even more important than that, most service contracts with third-party vendors, their limits of liability says in layman's terms, you are our client is not our client. Your client is not our client. So you are responsible for any breaches of notification expenses to your clients and not your vendor. So if there was a data breach, you would be responsible for notifying your clients, not the third-party vendor. But the short answer is most good policies cover it. Some cover it with a lot of caveats.
Thanks, Rob. We are short of time, so we'll be like taking small little questions ahead so that we cover the topic clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Supply chain attacks, we already have like covered in the vendors because that's kind of a thing which is equivalent. So that's where most of the firms are like dependent on international or the governmental laws because things coming into the market are verified or tested by certain departments, and that's how we work. Other than that, in a small companies or firms, we don't have such things to like verify such kind of attacks. For bigger firms, bigger corporate firms, maybe they might have something with that on that. But if you have anything on that, because I have never seen any corporate sector in where there's a group of people or a team which can look after this kind of an attack. So with this, we come to the second polling question, and let me just fetch that. So it's up time. So it's like 30% have by offering free updates, 70% have said that by compromising software or hardware components, and 10% by reducing license cost. Best practices countering phishing and ransom attacks. Rob, any tips you have other than the one which we have displayed, like stay calm, think before replying, authenticate the sender by seeing the email address, update and patch systems, alert your banks or fraudulent transaction for any such kind of thing, and be mindful of what you share on social media as our video will be published. So
Mm-hmm.
things like those.
Yeah,
So any other tips you have?
These are
Yeah,
all
please.
good tips. I don't have any additional things that I think. I think Brian already brought it up. Stay ahead of your updates. I know Microsoft comes out every Tuesday with theirs. Make sure your auto is on. One thing that can help is if you have Microsoft Office 365 and you're using Outlook, make sure that you have your email showing the full email name, not just the the name that they put in it, because they can copy and it'll come up and say Rob Farini, and then it'll have an email address that's not mine. But if you're showing both of those emails, then you'll be able to tell that that email is fake. So I would say that that's one of the better points. I would also suggest that you use a password vault, a password manager to manage your passwords so that you don't duplicate them.
Great. Thanks, Rob. So regulatory and compliance and legal concerns. Let's have a small Brian, can you elaborate on some of the new regulations and changes that the new administration may bring or have brought?
Yeah, I'll be quick on this one. I think With the new administration coming into place in January, I think there was a view that the SEC may relax regulation around cybersecurity, and we're not seeing that. At least at this point, we don't think that will change. In particular, Reg SP, the new regulation that mandates, at least as you distill everything that's in the new regulation, the main piece of that is the expectation that firms have a solid incident response plan. So that's not going away. If anything, maybe the regulation and the expectation of compliance by firms may be delayed a little bit. But realistically, in this day and age, the expectation of firms to have an incident response plan just should be there. It's just so important. Back to the last slide around ransomware and phishing. These have to be put in place. So I think you can critique the SEC, I'm sure, in lots of ways. That's Brian Long's opinion, not Line Data's opinion. But I think this is a good one in the sense that I don't think they're looking for anything extraordinary, and it is a pragmatic ask that they're putting forth of firms.
Thanks, Brian. Lack of awareness and training, that's the biggest problem, because we have been talking all about it, and everything comes at the end at the flaw of human. So what kind of training you suggest is good enough for like Brian? I'm asking you this. What type of training and how much training is good enough for a firm or to guard against cyber threats?
Yeah, it's we're almost to a point where there's training fatigue, because it's like, oh gosh, yet again I have to take cyber training. But what we recommend is quarterly training and testing of your employees or people of the organization, including vendors. Like, this is another one, going back to supply chain third-party vendors as well. We expect, when we're working with organizations, to comply with their security policies, take their security awareness and other training. So keep that in mind as well. Really push that down to your vendors. But I think the one thing I would recommend is that we see organizations that we would consider executing best practices of taking through people who failed the cybersecurity training or have been compromised through a more intense level of training. So it's not just doing a test, pass, fail. It really is focused on helping elevate individuals and give them that extra training, because the decision about whether an email is fraudulent or not is becoming more and more difficult, just is for all the things we talked about earlier. So
great, thanks. So with this, we come to our third polling question, and that is which of the following actions help protect against cybersecurity threats on your devices?
this is a great one. Like, the first choice and the last choice go back to vulnerability management and patching. Seeing clearly why that continues to be a challenge, given that these are up here and reflect reality.
Okay, time's up. So the result is 93% have said that regular updates and patching, and 7% have disabling antivirus software for faster performance, and 0% for the first one. So let's have a quick, because we are short of time, so let's quickly cover our topics. Was weak authentication and access controls. That's where, like, Rob has been telling us about, like, passwords every time. So Brian, other than there's passwords and access controls, what else we do to help mitigate the impact of compromised credentials?
A couple things.
Just give me a small little thing, because we have just 2 minutes. So let's close it as early as possible.
I'll be 10 seconds. Okay. Think of using passphrases as opposed to just passwords. They're far more difficult to compromise, and they're way easier for your employees to remember. That's number one. Two-factor authentication is an absolute must. And then make sure your procedures incorporate these. So it's great to have all of these controls, but if the way people act don't incorporate the cybersecurity controls you have in place, they're benign at the end of the day. So please incorporate them.
Thanks, Brian. Let's have our next question. Oh, time's up. So 20% have to enhance user experience, and 80% have said that to boost secure access or success of social engineering. Okay, so these are the recommendations as we read about it. So let's have some conclusive remarks on the cybersecurity strategies or things we have just read about. We have talked about. Rob, your point of view, and then Brian, your point of view on that, because we are already short of time. We are closing now.
Yep, these are great tips. I agree with all of these tips. Thanks for having me. And if anybody wants to talk insurance and have a review of what they have, I would be happy to.
Thanks.
I'll be
Brian?
quick here. The only thing that I see missing from this list is having a very focused and secure backup strategy. So we call them immutable copies when it comes to preventing things like ransomware. It's an absolute must. Separate backups, separate controls and IDs that get you into those backups, so you always know that you have a pristine image that you can come back to whenever you face a cyber threat, which at some point every single one of us will.
Thanks everyone for watching us, for having us here, and thanks Brian and Rob for your great tips and everything you've been telling us. Wonderful time with you people, and thanks for listening.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye everyone.